Erelon has just been blessed. A high-ranking Delrethi priest has just arrived with the holy mission to save them, body and soul, and his name is heathen. He's been sent by Jadeth's representative on the mortal plane, Wyrn, to come here to Kai. To his annoyance, the local Arteth has gone native, and he's forced to send him back to the Empire to try to salvage him and prevent him from causing any more damage here. The one seeming good thing he's done is raised up a zealot by the name of Delof, who, surprisingly, was Eoden and not Fjorden. Still, heathen sees the usefulness of Delof and elevates him to the rank of Arteth formally, but binds this man to himself in order to try to curb his ambition. He doesn't have time for internal politics, see, his holy mission is at stake. He has a scroll penned by the hand of Wyrn himself that gives him 3 months to save these people. The Empire has absorbed all the other known kingdoms but this one in Teod, and if heathen succeeds, it will be a peaceful integration of believers into Jadeth. If he fails, then Wyrn will arrive with his armies and purge the land and take it. Given how ugly things had been when he manipulated the conversion and absorption of Dulladen, heathen is committed to his cause. The most direct method, getting King Iodon to convert, expectedly fails, but he had to try. It also showed him a most unexpected adversary, the newly arrived princess from Teod, who was clearly far sharper than the cow that she was pretending to be for the king's benefit. Needing a different tack, heathen looks for an easy opportunity, a target to direct the hate of the people against. In this case, the Elantrians were the perfect choice, especially given how much Delof despises them, something for which hatred does not do justice. heathen decides to give a sermon on the Elantrians on the city walls, only to be thwarted by the inane interruptions of the Teod princess. Still, he doesn't see it as a great loss. The men that he is soon trying to get on his side, young Erelon noblemen anxious for power, don't care about theological arguments really, only a path up the social ladder. The older Lord Telri particularly sees the benefits of this. And for the common people, there was Delof, preaching sermons against the Elantrians with such fire that the people shared in his hatred of them. But in truth, heathen was jealous of this man's fervor. Still, heathen is in charge because he had success in the past, and his approach is to bring back Jadeth's return by converting the unbelievers. Delof has a similar goal in mind, but a different method. He wants to bring back Jadeth by slaughtering all the unbelievers. Despite appearances to outsiders, heathen was far more compassionate than such zealots, rebuking Delof's fanatical perspective when it showed naked hatred, or when it lacked reason. For instance, Delof believed the Riod was a punishment by Jadeth for Elantrian hubris, and that no member of the faithful would have been infected if this were a disease. But heathen notes that Jadeth is willing to use mundane means to achieve his ends, and after all, to tempt fate is foolhardiness. He also notes that the hubris argument is baseless, because the Sheod is continuing. So, why would Jadeth continue this form of punishment on those that are not guilty of this sin? No, something else is actually happening. But heathen isn't too concerned. He's found a doctrinal explanation for this supernatural power, which is the way that he can treat the Elantrians as enemies. Yet even they he pities privately, not pleased with adding to the hatred of the wretches. But after what happened in Dulladen, he'd rather turn the people against the Elantrians than the leadership and cause another bloodbath. heathen may be a man of faith, but he's also a man of reason, especially when his colleagues would prefer blurting out unthinking platitudes. He's a man of compassion when his colleagues would inflict suffering and death, and despite both these things, ensures that the armor of his office is functional, not ceremonial. The others see him as an enemy trying to topple the kingdom, but he sees that toppling as inevitable, and so if it is inevitable, all he's doing is trying to minimize the harm that it brings. He is a man who is dressed and prepared for battle, yet it's his fervent wish to avoid the shedding of any blood, even the heathen. They're not evil, he argues to Deloff. They're ignorant. They didn't reject Jadath. They never had the chance to learn of him. Destroying them rather than saving them was just wrong on multiple levels to Hrathen. After meeting with Lord Telri to advance their plans to put him on the throne in Iadon's place, using the very system the Merchant King created, Hrathen spoke with one of the guards outside of Elantris, and soon he had a specimen he could examine. A pathetic Elantrian named Dyren, who had been there for 7 months. His presence shocks Deloff into a blasphemous curse. Hrathen promises a basket of food for his cooperation, and when he's finished with Dyren, keeps his word as he tells the guard to provide it and then return him to Elantris. Nevertheless, Dyren and those like him are tools in saving this kingdom, so now they have to be vilified. The next step, then, is to turn the people against the Kilrathi priests who prepare the Elantrians for entry, to say this makes them complicit in the evil and turn them against the competing religion here. However, Deloff goes off script that night. As he's firing up the crowd, he reveals that Dyren never went back to Elantris, but instead, pretending that it was on Hrathen's orders, was brought back to the chapel with fresh wounds to the point that the Howeed is on him and he's begging for release, even if it means being burned. Hrathen quickly sees Deloff as risking everything in his blind hatred of Elantrians, trying to whip the crowd into a frenzy to burn Dyren alive and in public, which would of course prompt Iadon to shut them down. Elantrian or no, the king can't have a mob murdering somebody. Hrathen barely gets the crowd under control and then burns the Elantrian in private. He chastises Deloff over this, running circles around the Arteth's attempts to use doctrine to justify himself. Deloff was a mere child next to the intricate understanding of a Georn like Hrathen, after all. But he's going to need to act, and takes out the secret vile thing that he possesses, a Sion. He'd used it earlier to contact Wyrn, but now he contacts the guy who knows how to get all the best hash, man. The guy is so high that he assumes that when Hrathen contacts him through the Sion, that he's just offering a prayer and Jadoth is rerouting it down so this guy could hear him. But nevertheless, he's invaluable in concocting chemical items, and Hrathen has a very special order in mind. To deal with Deloff for a time, Hrathen instructs him to deliver a letter to Wyrn, a journey of weeks. However, Deloff anticipates the move, and tricked 30 of the priests to be sworn to him, the same way that he was sworn to Hrathen, meaning that if he were to go and bring all of his entourage with him, he would gut the temple for the duration of the trip, and there was nothing that Hrathen could do to stop him. He soon realizes that by sending away all the priests who had succumbed to Erelon's influence, he had stacked the chapel in Deloff's favor, that they would go along with the zealous Deloff's plans. Reluctantly, he has to abort this, and that night, as he climbs the walls of Elantris to think, he encounters Omen, head of the Kilrathi religion in Kai. Omen brings up the fact that the Elantrians used to feed the masses by turning mundane things like dirt and rocks into edible food, which seems like an odd thing for devils to do. But after a bit of polite debate, turning this to the real crux of the matter, one thing seems to be missing from Hrathen's preaching: faith. He knows everything to say, but Omen can hear that faith is missing from his heart as he says them. Hrathen is soon back up on the wall to witness his adversary delivering food to the Elantrians, showing the people that these are not mindless zombies or some kind of demon, just poor people deserving of pity. Telri is concerned that this will undermine the plan, especially with Iadon getting fresh new trade routes with Teod, but Hrathen thinks that everything is on track. In the end, what matters to Wyrn the most is that the leadership embraces the faith. Then it'll just trickle down to the masses. Except Telri was right. The trade with Teod thwarts that plan as well. Sereni has outplayed him in politics, and Deloff has outplayed him in the chapel. By now, with the old Arteth out of the way, Dilaf is de facto head of the church in Ireland here, with the official and unofficial influence that he has. And Hrathen himself is suffering from the sting of Omen's words, the long-standing fear that Jareth dwells in his head, but not in his heart. All this makes Hrathen a far more complex man than he might seem from the outside. It's his adversary within the church that embodies all of the traits one would expect from him, a Gjorn. Hrathen answers to Wyrn himself, yet does not have a faith to match his position, only an intellect. His feelings towards Dilaf of jealousy are not for his oratory ability, but the fire of faith that burns within him. After all, one cannot make oneself believe more, because belief is eroded by doubt, and the source of the doubts typically remain. Hrathen is on the surface working to grow the faith and save their souls, but in truth the soul that he's saving is his own, sparing himself further guilt like that from Duladel, when so many died because of his plots and schemes. The thing that makes this personal for him are quieting the screams of the dying that still live in the memories of a man with far too little faith and far too much guilt.